Yeah, Tanvi, you must start. Tanvi, we are live. You may start.
So, hello everyone. My name is Tanvi Saini, your host for today's event. So, I'd like to thank all the participants and our guests for their valuable presence. So, now if I talk about Cloud Security Alliance, UPS CSA, it is an international organization which promotes best practice to help ensure a safe cloud security environment, and also provides industry level certifications in the fields of cloud security. UPS CSA happens to be the first student chapter in prestigious international organizations in Uttarakhand, which helps its members excel both professionally and academically. Okay, so now if we talk about UPS CSA, it believes in the technical advancement and innovation of the society. And with its very first hackathon, we intend to invite people from all over to present their ideas. UPS CSA chapters believes in progressing in such a manner that benefits the community and helps other to grow as well. With the same height, we present before you UPS Hackathon, CSA's Hackathon 1.0. In this hackathon, we'll be providing the participants with two types of problem statements, one from the NGOs and one from the technical fields. This hackathon will not only allow students to practice and learn and put their knowledge and skills to the test, but will also give them the exposure to problems and issues that are prevailing in the social society, and also will help them to resolve. So, for more knowledge and registering for hackathon, you may visit our CSA's official website. Moving ahead, I would like to welcome you all again in today's event and the session on Lambda API Gateway with Dynamodb. For better understanding of the topic, we have Mr. Sanchit Jain among us, who is the lead AWS lead architecture at Quantiphi, AWS partner ambassador, and AWS community builder. He has been contributing in well communities for a very long time. So now let's begin with the session. The stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you so much, Tanvi, for that warm welcome. And thank you so much, Dehradun, UPSC, CSA, for giving me this opportunity again. Last time also I got in this wonderful opportunity. So thank you so much for inviting this again. I think you guys are making more and more of spoiling my habit to be more involved in Dehradun. But yeah, never mind. This is a good habit, so I'm loving it. That's not a problem. Yeah, so let me go ahead, share my screen, and talk about a couple of things which can help you when it comes to development for your hackathon, from specifically to AWS, considering how exactly you can leverage things like serverless, API gateway, Dynamodb, or host some static website, right? How can you build instead of days, weeks, and months in a couple of hours, and there is 1 hour of session? I'll go through that again. If you have any questions, I know there are a couple of things which you will learn for the first time. You will go through different back and forth, what's new, or how you're doing this, how you're doing that. Don't worry, don't hesitate. Focus on the session. Don't worry about the code snippet. Don't worry about the presentation. I'll share everything post the session on the video itself on the YouTube channel. So please focus on the session. And again, don't hesitate to ask the question. If you have any sorts of questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, which may be as simple as what is API gateway. That's what the intent of this session. Keep it as simple and make it more interactive for you guys. This is for you guys. So please feel free, ask questions. I'm happy to answer. With that, let me go ahead and share my screen. So starting with microservices on AWS, starting today, which Tanvi mentioned about it. I think speaker perspective, my name is Sanchit. I work as a lead architect at Quantiphi for AWS channel, AWS business unit, and APN ambassador and a cloud community builder. Recently, I started leading the AWS user group Mumbai. So please do follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, GitHub. If you have any questions, queries, it may be as simple as how do I start my AWS journey or how do I start my AWS certification. You can reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer them and help you guys. First, let me start with overview of Lambda. So I've kept this entire session more of demo, less of theoretical. I don't want to talk about more in documentation of AWS and all. I just want to go and get my hands dirty on console. That's what the whole preparation will help you for the hackathon. But before I go and do that, for sure, I need to give you some quick deep dive or some overview around how exactly what is Lambda, what is API gateway in DynamoDB. So then you can correlate with the practical part of it. So I won't take much time, and let me quickly jump on to the theory part of it. So when you talk about AWS Lambda, the first thing, which is a buzz, right? Everywhere you see Lambda, then there is a word that comes as serverless. AWS Lambda, the next word is serverless. Let's understand what exactly is serverless, right? And why serverless has become a buzz in the market. So basically, serverless, that doesn't mean that there is no server. If you're thinking serverless by the name suggests there is no server, then that's a wrong thought process, I would say. It's not. So it's a serverless as an end user. As for me, it's serverless. Behind the scene, AWS do spin up a server for them, for us to do it. It's just that we as an end user are not spinning up a server. That's why we call it as a serverless. And why it is an advantage, or why people are more looking forward for such kinds of services. Why? Because it's cloud native. Cloud native is a very important term to understand. That means it's taken care. Anything, any service where you heard cloud native, you can easily click that is something taken care by the cloud provider. As an end user, you don't have to worry about the infrastructure. That simply means cloud native. And it's not just with respect to Lambda. There are many other services on AWS like Fargate and all other services, DynamoDB, API Gateway. They are all cloud native. You really don't have to worry about it. You just have to provide the right configurations. So it's a cloud native. Now let's understand where and how you should leverage serverless. Short running, stateless computation. What does that mean is, serverless means that there is no state maintained. State means, let's say you're calling or invoking a Lambda for the first time, you're calling it second time, you're calling it third time. There is no state will be maintained after every call. So if, let's say, if you're doing some arithmetic operation and you need the response from state 1, from state 2, from state 3 after and then showing the final results, this won't work. Then Lambda is not the right choice, or serverless is not the right choice. It's completely stateless. Just you fire an API, get the response, and forget it. Doesn't matter what was the request and response for the first, what was the second, what was the third. That's one. Second, it needs to be short running. Now, let's say if you're doing some big data, some machine learning or AI ML kind of heavy processing, it will take like hours, weeks, days based on the computation. Lambda or serverless is not meant for that. It is as simple as 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 5 minutes kinds of stuff, right? So very simple example of, if I explain what is short running, is you need to get the data from database. How much time will it take? 2 minutes, 1 minute, 5 minutes max, right? For such kinds of application, serverless makes sense a lot. Next, for short running, stateless computation and event-driven application. Now that's exactly the beauty of Lambda is event-driven. Now we'll understand in the next slide what exactly is event-driven. But event-driven is some action that occurs, some event or some kind of an action that occurs, which triggers your serverless and that performs any sorts of operation which you ask. So that's sort of an event. We will look into a deep dive into next slide, but that's in simple as an event that based on any occurrences, you perform some action and take an action, which scales up, scales down instantaneously and automatically. So you don't have to worry about scaling up, scaling down. As the beauty, as I was talking about serverless, you don't have to worry about spinning the infrastructure. AWS will do it on behalf of you. You just have to write the code. And the last part is charge for actual usage at a millisecond granularity. So that doesn't mean that you have to pay some sort of, let's say, $15 or some sort of a $20 kind of a price. Whatever you're using it in form of milliseconds, which maybe, let's say, 30,000 milliseconds, which is almost like 300 seconds, or whatever the milliseconds rate, what you're paying or what you're leveraging, what you're using, that's what you pay. So that's a beauty, or that's what serverless is renowned. And if you see on the right side, the advantage which you get is greater agility, less overhead, better focus, increased scale, more flexibility, and faster time to market. Now you'll feel like, okay, what does jargons are? I mean, I can't understand what exactly this is you're talking about. In industry, really, people don't want to worry about managing the infrastructure. For them, they always want to go cloud. But with the cloud, they want someone else to take the headache of managing the infrastructure. They simple, and I mean, the moral of the story for them is my application should work. It should provide or serve as per my required traffic, which is the consumption based on the end user. It should scale. It should allow me to only focus on my business application. I really don't care about the server, scaling up, scaling down, those kinds of stuff. And I want to reach the market very fast. So if it's going to take me 6 months, I want to better reach in 2 months in the market. For our industry, these are the four things that matters. That's what serverless help us. Greater agility, that means you purely focus on your business application. You don't care about the infrastructure and all. Less overhead, we can correlate that you only worry about your business application. Better focus, again, just pure business application, no need to worry about the infrastructure and all. Increase scaling, serverless AWS takes care of scaling up or provisioning the infrastructure. So you don't have to worry about it. They will scale as per the load. More flexibility. And last time, when you're only focusing on your business application, you don't worry about the time required to reach to the market and all. So that's the beauty of serverless. If I summarize it in one slide itself, that what exactly is serverless and what are the benefits of it. Moving towards next, which is more important, is to understand what is event programming, right? We understood in the previous slide, event triggered. So what's exactly that event trigger is? What's that entire jargon? So this is more core to understand how exactly Lambda operates. Now, code runs in response to an event. As I said, there's some event that occurs. There's an action that is taken on that, right? And what's exactly event programming? So on the first column, event source, you see there is an event source, and there is a Lambda function, and there is an output, an action. So there can be anything. An event can be as simple as today is, let's say, today you have 9th of April, 8 p.m. IST. That's an event. It can be someone insert a new row in a database. So event can be as small as change in a database. Event can be as small as schedule, like you have an alarm in your phone. So that's another an event. Anything which is a change or anything that can be changed in a state or data state or a request can be an event. So we'll understand at by end of the session, like how we'll hit a Lambda via API gateway or we trigger via API gateway. That's again an event. So event can be anything, a user defined event, a schedule event, or a real time event. It can be any form, any shape. Whenever there is an event that occurs, if you have trigger or if you have integrated that event with Lambda, your Lambda will invoke. And what exactly is Lambda? Lambda is nothing but a program which you have written in any of this programming language, Node.js, Python, Java, C#, Go, Ruby, or any other API, runtime API. So that is what you have written. And based on what you have developed with help of this programming language, that is what is taken care as an action. So which is as simple, a standard example of Lambda, which you will see in any documentation. Someone uploads a file in S3 bucket, a Lambda gets triggered, and then it processes that file. And the standard example is someone uploads an image to S3 bucket, Lambda picks up that file and generates a thumbnail. So that's a very simple example to understand event driven. Now you can build from simple to a complex application of event driven. Now, if I talk about many a times, if I talk about an industry perspective, we need to track, is there any state change in terms of database? There is any sorts of compliance records are there, and we want to check that is there any data got changed? If it got changed, what was the previous value? What is the current value? And who changed it, for an example? Now, I don't know whenever the user can come up, maybe middle of the night or maybe early very morning or maybe in the afternoon itself. I don't know. I can't just keep watching. Does the user made a change? No, right? So for that, we can use such kinds of a framework of event driven. But whenever there is a state change in a particular table of a given database, I trigger it a Lambda, and in that Lambda, I get a email notification or an SMS, X table, Y row got changed by X user, which is as simple. I don't have to spend much time, energy, and cost. It's not going to take me like 1 cent. 1 cent for this particular simple application. It will be less than 1 cent. So that's the beauty of the serverless and the entire event-driven programming. Again, if you have any questions, please do put it in the chat. After this particular theoretical section, I'll go back to chat and I'll see if you have any questions. So please don't hesitate to put the question in the chat. So next, what we'll do is I'll switch on to AWS console for a quick demo about how you can play around with the Lambda. I think there is a question from sir, is it a faulty event or done on purpose? So, okay. So as I mentioned about, right, when you talk about the event can be anything by default, scheduled, or user defined. Now, let's say for an example, very simple. If I put it out, you want to wish a birthday to someone. Now you're pretty occupied and you don't remember. You're like me, you forget the dates, and you want to be very sure that you don't want to remember it, but still you want to wish everyone. So what you can do, you can just schedule the Lambda with a default, with a good HTML message email template, and you schedule the Lambda based on the different event dates. Automatically Lambda will invoke on that particular date, particular time, and send that HTML, whatever the email template you have designed to wish, to greet, it can automatically send. So that's a, you can say, user defined. Similarly, if something, let's say, goes wrong with AWS, some services goes wrong, some region goes down, and that's a by default event can also trigger a Lambda. So there are multiple forms and shape which you will see how when I will be invoking it. So it can be by default, I mean real time, by default, user defined, or a schedule. The events can be of any type. The second question around that, sir, what if when we download that thumbnail file and paste the code there and change the name of the object and then test that code and then it fails? What if when we download that thumbnail file and paste the code there and change the name of the object and then test that code? I didn't got you. Can you please rephrase your question? Seems like you have a specific scenario where you have faced. Again, we can go through that scenario offline, or can you rephrase the question? I honestly didn't get your question there. What are you talking about the thumbnail? So yeah, what I'll do in meantime, I'll switch to AWS console for the demo. So this is my AWS console. I'm pretty sure you guys are very well integrated with AWS. So you'll be having a good idea about this console. I'll click on the Lambda service. First, what I'll do is I'll just talk about a very simple. So when you have a Lambda, you can create from scratch. You can use the blueprint. So there are a couple of default ones AWS do provides across Node.js, Python, and different programming languages. You can also use the Docker containers. So Lambda now does also supports Docker container. It's almost like a year and a half. So you can use container, or you can use this marketplace or an open community. So there are communities who have written the Lambda and published their free codes. You can also leverage this one. I would say it's no harm if you already see the required Lambda script is available. You should use that rather than rewriting it. And again, if it's all about practicing, based on the time you can decide. And these are the different programming language which I was talking about. I mean, they are same but different versions of it. So for demo, we'll choose Python 9.
Sanchit, really sorry to disturb, but if you are now your screen is displayed.
Okay. So thanks for highlighting it. So so yeah, when it comes to the console, I'm pretty sure you guys are aware about the console part of it, like how the AWS console look like. Let me quickly jump onto AWS Lambda console and click on create function. So as I was talking about, there are 4 different options you can have. One is the blueprint, which AWS provides out of the box. Second is the container. So recently I was talking about Docker images are also supported. The third option is that you can leverage the community code. So this has all been developed by AWS and different community. You can leverage this repository also. For the demo, what I'm going to do, since you guys get more exposure, I'll take from scratch and design a sample one. The runtime is all different programming language. I'll select Python 3.9. This is more about your processor. You can skip. I mean, you can keep this as default. Use an existing IAM role. I mean, you can create a new one, create from a template, or use an existing. I'll use my standard existing one and click on create function. Okay. So this is as simple as you have created a Lambda function. How much click? I think almost not more than 5 to 6 clicks. And your Lambda function is ready. This Lambda function do have a basic code snippet that whenever I trigger it, you will see a response code 200 and a string which is in a JSON form, hello world from Lambda. So if I test this, so I think there was a question around that event. So basically this is an event window where I can define. So now, I mean, there are different ways. Recently, AWS also provides different way. You can also share your events across one user to the another user. We won't deep dive into that, but let's say you want to trigger an event. So I've given name demo. Here are the different sorts of templates which AWS provides, like across different of the services to test your Lambda. Okay, so you can pick up any particular template out of that drop down. Now I think there was one question: is it by default? So now I'm explicitly, if you check here, I'm explicitly giving an event to test this out. So this is user defined one, and I'll click on test. So this is how it's showing. Test name, event name is demo, and the response is status code and the body. So now I've given a pseudo user defined event to test the Lambda. In a real-time scenario, this can be a configure or a schedule event also via CloudWatch or Event Bridge or something. Or it can be also a request which an end user can give via API gateway. So it can be of any form, any shape. But for Lambda, it's pretty simple. There is an event, I will listen to an event, and I will perform an action. In our case, the action was return a status code and a JSON object. So that is as simple what we understood in the event-driven thing, that there is an event, Lambda will get triggered, and Lambda will perform the action which you have written. So this is the action what we have defined in Python 3.9. I hope this is pretty clear. A simple example which is pretty clear to you guys how exactly this can work. What I'll do next is just to show that, okay, you can take a real-time thing. I'll just open one of the complex Lambda. Again, this is not very complex. It's a simple arithmetic operation what I'm doing. But the difference here is that this particular Lambda will accept the input from the end user. So I'll go and deploy. Deploy means you're saving it. Now I will test it. In order to test it, I will configure a new event. So if I first show you how exactly the user is, the Lambda is expecting. If you see, it's reading message. From message, it is reading number 1, number 2. So it needs 2 inputs. So I'll go ahead. Number 1, number 2, and okay. So you can either change it or you can keep it as it is. That's all fine. This is what we are giving. Save. And we will test. As you can see, this is a response which we have given. Now, here you can give any number. I've given 10, 20. You can give 20, 30. You can give 40, 50, whatever number you want to give. The Lambda will automatically pick the value from the input and will execute. I'll show you this best example is I will integrate. First, we'll understand what is API gateway. And then I will integrate this Lambda with API gateway and we will test it via different values. Before I go to that thing and start the API section, I think there are a couple of questions in the chat. Let me quickly answer those questions. Okay, so I think please tell me about JSON. I think so. Yeah, if you're not sure about what exactly is a JSON, JSON is a data representation. How exactly the data get represented? There are different forms of it. JSON is there, Avro is there, Parquet is there, where exactly your data get presented or data gets stored in simple. Okay, so now this is a simple Lambda function. Again, if you have any questions, any doubts, please put it in the chat. I will move to the next section. Move to the next section and we'll understand about the API gateway part of it. So this is what we have done. To recap, we went to the Lambda console, click on create function, enter the name, select the role, and we have click on the create function. This is what the event we have given, and this is the entire code snippet. So even if you want to do it at your end with this presentation, I will try to upload all the code snippet and presentation by end of today, and I'll share the link with Tanvi and the with the host, so you can contact them, get the link, and try at your end before your hackathon. So now let's understand. I mean, we understood how Lambda works, but you understand how exactly what is that code? I mean, the code snippet that I've written, let's try to understand, let's try to deep dive what exactly that code means. So this is a code which we have, right? Very simple, hello world. Now, first, this particular function, this entire function in Python is called as a handler. Handler, in a simple words, you can think of your main function. Now, if you're from a Java background or any programming language, there is always a main function, right? From which your execution of program starts. In Lambda, that main function is called as a handler. The second is an event object. Event object in simple will send the data. So if you have any sorts of input which you give to Lambda, which is via API gateway or a schedule, or let's say some real time, someone uploads the data into SA in real time event. Any sorts of input which needs to be given to a Lambda will be given via event object, which you can see here. And then the last point is the context. Context is more like if you want to understand about this Lambda itself, such as runtime. So each Lambda execution has a unique runtime. Or you want to understand a different other properties, like how much this Lambda ran or how much time it left. So those kinds of intelligent thing you can understand with help of context. So I'll tell you, many a times what happens is when you're running certain kind of application, you want to understand how much time Lambda is left. So Lambda has a hard limit. It cannot overrun. It can max run up to 15 minutes. But so many people, what they try, right? They make a bad design here. They check whether Lambda is almost done with 15 minutes. If yes, then they invoke another Lambda with the continue processing it. Again, that's a very bad design, but some people do it as part of their design architecture or the flaw in their architecture. So they try to create a chain, a tight dependency between the Lambdas, which should not be done. It's a very bad practice. But for such kinds of thing, you can see that how much time is left for Lambda to die, or the request ID, or even the CloudWatch log group, that if you want to understand where all these logs are getting stored of Lambda execution, those kinds of detail about Lambda itself, you can identify from the context. So that's about three things: handler, event object, and the context. Now, important point is Lambda handler. So I've written Lambda underscore handler. This is a function name. Okay, it doesn't mean that you have to write underscore handler only. It's a function name which you can simply give as hello Sanchit. So it does not need to be handler as a keyword in it. It can be anything, but as simple as wherever the signature def function name event comma context colon will always be treated as handler. So if you are writing, let's say if you're a very good fan of object-oriented programming and you have broken down your lambdas into multiple function, do remember that you need to write only one function handler which needs to have event and context. Don't write event and context in everyone. So only the one function can be handler. So that's about understanding the code. If you understand this structure very well, you can build any pattern, any action, any operation you can do with help of the Lambda. And a small tip I would say is, if you want to understand and practice, go to Boto 3. You just go to Google and search Python AWS Boto 3 and then space any services. Let's say, for example, you want to understand about S3. So Python Boto 3 S3. The Boto 3 is a AWS SDK in Python, which will help you to understand about any services. The documentation is really good. I mean, the best documentation I've ever seen in my life of Boto 3. Very simple. Best examples are given. So you can just copy paste the code snippet when you really understand how exactly Lambda works and how exactly the Boto 3 works. So you don't have to mug up the syntax or remember that. You just have to understand the basic foundational part of it. Rest, that documentation can help you. So that's about the Lambda, which is part 1. Let me quickly check. Do we have any questions in the chat? I don't think there is a question. So let me go ahead and move to the next section. What is AWS API Gateway? Very interesting topic, I would say. AWS API Gateway is a kind of an AWS service for creating, publishing, maintaining, monitoring REST APIs, REST endpoints. Right now, we'll understand in detail in the next slide. Why do you need API Gateway? I mean, what exactly AWS first API Gateway can give and table, so that you understand, then it becomes very easy for you that API Gateway is another service of AWS. But again, what exactly, why do you need API Gateway? Now, the best thing is about API Gateway is it help you to access any resources as form of an endpoint. Now, previously, if I talk about previously as such as last week, if you have asked me a question, how I can access my Lambda, I would have said API Gateway is the only mechanism. But recently, this week itself, AWS has released as function URL. So function URL, that means Lambda can directly be invoked with help of the function URL without API Gateway. So that's the case. But previously, almost for 7 years, Lambda can only be invoked from external browser as an API with help of only API Gateway. You cannot invoke Lambda without API Gateway. Again, you can invoke Lambda with Boto 3 client and all, but not in form of an API. If you want to always invoke a form in API, then API Gateway was only the solution up to last week. So interesting things going on in AWS, I would say. And again, when it comes to REST, someone may ask me, what exactly is REST? REST is again a framework via which you can design APIs. There are many such frameworks available. REST, SOAP, that help you to perform or build your APIs in that fashion. REST works very renowned in the market, in the industry itself, in the framework, and it's based on HTTP, and it provides supports all HTTP methods such as GET, POST, PUT, patch, and delete. Honestly, you don't have to worry a lot about it. I'll tell you, my experience always has been GET, as a name suggests, GET. This is also referred as HTTP verb or methods. GET is something simple. You have to get something from the Lambda. So that means retrieve, list. So that becomes GET. POST. Generally, POST people largely use POST for anything, whether you're selecting, whether you're inserting, whether you're updating, whether you're deleting. By default, POST has been widely used method of HTTP. Put, patch, and delete. Again, patch, you know what I'm talking about. Update, delete means the same thing. Post, put is again the same kind of stuff. Mostly widely people do use POST, and even that's what even I do use POST more widely. But again, I won't say that's the right way, because based on the nature of your API, you should really look forward. The POST is, it just just package your entire body, request body properly. That's why people widely use POST. But based on the verb, based on your what API you're doing, you should change accordingly to the respective method. But this is how, in simple, very simple layman language, this is how the framework look like, where you have the client, which can be an end user, mobile application, web application. You have an HTTP API, which triggers a Lambda function. Moving towards the next, why exactly you need API? I'm not talking about AWS API Gateway. Why do you need an API? Like, what API brings? So that's the traditional way of doing this. The big problem on the left side is the traditional way. The right side is the REST-based system. Now understand what exactly it was doing, right? Previously, you have SOAP, you have REST API, you have RSS, ODBC, FTP. Now, there was no uniform standard which you can invoke all of the system. Again, they are very limited. There are multiple systems are there where an application can there, which is as simple as, let's say, Amazon.in is a web application. Now, let's say Amazon.in wants to trigger a workflow because you ordered something and they want to trigger a workflow. Now, would you prefer something which is uniform, unique, uniform and consistent for all sorts of requests? Or would you like, as a developer, that for every request, there is a new signature, new way to interact? Obviously, the first one, right? You don't want to get into the complexity of understanding what is backend, what are different protocols, what are different credentials and other stuff. That was the drawback of the previous method. If I want to deal with FTP, I as an end user web developer has to write the code for FTP trigger. If I want to deal with database, maybe JDBC or ODBC, I have to write different codes for handling that. If I want to scroll the data from a RSS feed and all, I have to write a different code. That was a drawback. Where you see in a case of API gateway, what they simplify. You are an end user, you are a mobile device or a web application. Don't worry, there is a standard framework which is API. We have built an API. You just call the API and tell what you need from which particular source. Behind in the API layer and in the mediation layer, you write that translation code that based on the request by web app or by mobile device and end user perform that particular action. So as an end user, as a web application or web developer, you don't have to worry. You have to just write what do you need and from where you need. That's it. So that's the advantage why people need API a lot. Now, if you think about API, there are multiple actions. Certain times in industry, people always get also used load balancer as one of the endpoint. I won't say that's wrong or right. That depends on what kind of use case it is. If you're using, let's say, some sort of a container service like Docker, Kubernetes, then yes, exactly. Load balancer is another way of that mediation or API. So it depends from what architecture you're doing. But the whole story or the moral is you need some mediation API layer. Web application, mobile application, end user can't reach out to each source and interact. That's not the practice. And again, that leads to also security vulnerabilities. So that is why APIs and mediation layers are the go-to thing. And that's how we see AWS API gateway, if you talk about, or the load balancer as a mechanism, as an endpoint, which you can trigger. Now, what are the security features? For sure, as I talk about that API gateway is an endpoint, which end user, web application, mobile application invoke. So for sure, there needs to be some layers of security around it, right? Otherwise, many people, they do bounty bugs and those kinds of attacks nowadays. That's a pretty common. It's a different stream of security engineers that has turned out. So what AWS API gateway provides in terms of the security? They provide three big buckets. One is the authentication and authorization. In case of authentication, they do have resource policies, IAM roles, IAM tags, and endpoint policies, Lambda and Cognito. Again, I know the heavy term, some people may be knowing it, some people not. In short, you can just summarize it. There is a proper resource policy to ensure do you have the right access or not. Two, it can also be integrated with AWS IAM roles. Again, I'm pretty sure you guys been knowing about the IAM roles. And three, it also integrates with AWS Cognito. Cognito is more like an authentication and authorization service which help you to integrate, to log in. Like generally speaking, you always sign in with Google, sign in with LinkedIn or Facebook, right? On Instagram or Gmail or anywhere. Similarly, Cognito also provides that kind of an functionality. So this three security mechanism provides when it comes to specifically authentication and authorization. That's one. Second, access control. Access control, you can also think in your head more like in data security or encryption. That any sorts of data that is transferring via API, how it can secure. So you can have cross origin, you can have client-side SSL, or you can also have web application firewall. That you can also use to restrict the access of API gateway and also encrypting. As simple as I'm building an API gateway which only should be invoked within the United States, or it can be only invoked within India. Those kinds of additional security you can do via access control offering with help of WEF and SSL. And the last, API gateway, you would have seen many APIs do have limits, rate limits. You cannot do beyond this. Maybe you can only invoke 100 calls at a time. You cannot go above that. So those kinds of tracking and limiting the usage are the third thing, where you can have usage plan and you can have the API keys, which is as simple how we deal with the other sorts of APIs available in the market. So these are the three security features on a high level which API gateway provides. This is pretty common, I would say, which any other API provides. And this is how the entire flow looks like, where you have mobile application, website, or any service, maybe as simple as someone is hitting from the postman via the internet. It gets the request, it checks the request whether it's cached or not. If it is not, it checks whether it's throttling or not. I mean, throttling is like no one is querying more limits. The thing which we understood in the previous slide, the usage and everything. So throttling, securities, and all those stuff. If everything is good, then it goes and execute the backend. Now, backend can be anything. API gateway is not just only can be integrated with Lambda. It can integrate with multiple services like SQS, Kinesis, being network load balancers. It are many services people can integrate with the API gateway. So then it go and perform the required action or the integration. It invoke the resources, the backend, and entire thing, whatever this entire route, you can log into the CloudWatch. So that's how the general design pattern is. Now, in your case, as well as in my case, when I'm working around, this pattern will change. Now, I might also have a web application and I have Lambda in the backend, which we'll see in the demo. But this pattern will change. But the important thing is this blue box, which is what you guys need to understand. Whatever design pattern you have on the left side or on the right side, this blue box always will remain constant, where it will receive the incoming request, verify it, and execute it. So that's about API gateway. If you have any questions, let me take a couple of questions if you have in the chat. I see there are no questions. So I assume everything is clear. If not, then please don't hesitate. Please put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer the question. What I'll do is next is I'll switch on to the AWS console. We have created this sample Lambda, right? What it used to do is it used to have API gateway on top of it, right? So this is the Lambda which used to take the simple request. So what I'll do next is I will go ahead and build an API gateway. So I'm on my AWS console and I'll click on API gateway. Again, if you don't know, since I have used API gateway, so it's on my search history itself. Otherwise, this simple. You can directly go and type here in the search bar and you will see the API gateway as the first when you type API itself. What I'll do, I'll go at the bottom and I'll select REST API. Click on build. Click OK. Again, there are multiple ways you can do REST, WebSocket, new API, import Swagger, and all again. These are the, I would say, in simple if I define. First, REST versus WebSocket. WebSocket is a continuous connection. REST is more like a request response. I need something, you give me back the response, done, connection closed. WebSocket is a continuous kind of thing. So do remember that's the difference. When it comes to new API, Swagger is an API documentation. Certain people in industry, people do document it because you don't know. Some people, people always move from one place to another. So you don't know what was designed in that API unless that developer is still in your company. So they're documented and the documentation is called a Swagger or something. So either you can create from scratch, you can import the Swagger, or you can follow the example which is given by the AWS. We will select the new one. I'll create demo API. Okay, and you can give the description and all. For the demo, I'll leave that open. So I'm here. That's it. Click 1. You just have to provide the endpoint name, which I've given the demo API. Click 2. I need to provide the method. Methods are nothing but the HTTP verb or HTTP action. In our case, as I said, I always use post. So post to the integration type. In our case is a Lambda. We'll say sample. As you start typing, you can see the name itself. Rest you need to keep as it is. Save. This will ask you, you're allowing AWS API gateway to invoke Lambda. We'll say, okay, go ahead. This is as simple. You have to build an API gateway. How many clicks? 3 to 4 clicks max. Okay. Next, what we'll do is we'll enable the cross origin. Because many times what happens is you invoke a Lambda from some website. So there is some domain transfer and all those things comes into the place. So it's always easy that you by default go to the method and enable cross. And you will see this option. You click on enable cross and yes. Okay. So the cross is enabled. As you can see this, when you enable the cross, you will automatically see an option here. Let me zoom in a bit in case if screen is not visible. Options method will be by default will be there, and this is post. Now you can test this. If you're not sure whether you have configured it right or not, you can test this out. Like, let me do one thing. Let me test this properly. So what was our input? It was a JSON, right? Again, no need to worry about it. I'll give this sample input JSON also, which is a request into the GitHub repository. So this is what we have given, right? At the last time, number 1, number 2, and 2 numbers are given. Now let me test this. Okay. By default, you see that, okay, there is a kind of input which you have given. Method got executed successfully, completed successfully. Now, so what we'll do is now we will, what I have done is I've tested the option thing. That's why I didn't got a response. I have to test the post method. That's why we didn't got any response. So, method is just like a transfer. The option is just like a transfer, a dummy resource kind of a thing to transfer it from one domain to another. That is why we didn't got any sort of response there. See, here is exactly the response. So this ensure my API gateway got set up, integrated properly with the Lambda. So whenever I give a request, this is again an event. I'm giving a user-defined request, which inform an event, hit the Lambda, get the response back, and displays the response. So this includes my integration is correct. Now, obviously, I need to save this. This is not saved yet. So what in order need to save means you need to deploy the API. Click on deploy. You can have different stages. So generally, you would be aware about it. There are different stages of software development are there, right? Dev stage, development stage, UAT stage, QA, and prod. Similarly, you can have the APIs also hosted in different stages. Like it can point to dev, QA, UAT, and prod. What we'll do is we have tested this out. So I'm assuming everything is working fine. So I'll directly put it into prod. Don't do this. It's not recommended, but I'm doing it assuming that everything is working fine. And again, I'm the only user who's using this application. So this is how you can do it. Now, if I want to test it, so there is a Postman, which is a renowned open source client via which you can do anything, get, post, any kinds of request. So I'll put it again. There are many people who also use curl command from the command line. So if you're using curl command and you're pretty familiar, no need to worry. But if you're not aware about the curl commands and you want to use something as an UI, then you can download Postman. It's available for all the operating system. We'll go to the body again. Select draw. This is a small mistake many people do is, if you see here, there's a text. Always take JSON and application as an input when you're dealing around with the AWS. Okay, I think my screen is not shared. Just one sec. Let me. Okay, so this is the Postman that helps around it. We'll again do the same thing. And I'll go and hit. Same response which you got in case of API gateway is I'm getting as an end user. So this is how industry deploy or develop API gateway and Lambda as an endpoint. This is very simple. What I built in very simple arithmetic Lambda. Now you can think of, you can also write a complex code to push into database. Let's say you're working in a hackathon scenario where you want to insert the data from a UI. Simple, you know the answer, how to build an API gateway, how to build a Lambda. The only thing is left is how to save the data in Dynamodb, which also will look into it. So it becomes very simple now. You can write an API gateway, write a code in Lambda, in Python, in Boto, with help of Boto3 to put the data into Dynamodb or retrieve the data same from the Dynamodb. So that's about how exactly you can leverage API gateway in Lambda, which is the more critical part. Now let's switch and understand how exactly the Dynamodb works from a database perspective.
Sanchit, your StreamYard screen is stuck while displaying. Yeah.
1 second. Thanks for that. I think there's some issue at my end. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, the slides are visible.
Oh, okay, perfect. So yeah, this so far what we have understood is how we can have the Lambda API gateway integrated together, and you can build any services and you can test it with the help of the Postman. Next, we will go and understand the DynamoDB. So before we go into DynamoDB, I just want to quickly cover about what is SQL and NoSQL. I think most of the people on this call, I assume you would already be aware about it. But just in case if you're not aware about what is SQL or NoSQL, SQL is anything where is a structured and that structure is mandatorily you need to follow. As simple as there is, if I talk about in your case, there are a kind of a rules which is defined for any class, any division. You have to follow it. Whatever the rules are, you have to follow it. You cannot disobey that rules. So that's like SQL. If a table defines, by default, it needs to be 4 column. Even though if you don't have a specific value within that particular column for a given row, you can insert null, but structure needs to be maintained. Very simple layman language I'm talking about. NoSQL on the other side is you're free. You're mature enough, you know how to clear, what to do, what not to do. So that's how it's not mandatory. There are no rules. The only rule is this partition key needs to be unique. The sort key can be duplicate, same, whatever it is. And when it comes to this attribute column, there is no structure. If you don't have data, don't push the data. No need to add the unnecessary null. Now that's how the SQL and NoSQL difference are in a very simple language. DynamoDB is a NoSQL database. It falls into this category. Whereas if you, let's say, you need a SQL database for your hackathon or something, then you need to go to the RDS, relational database, where you can have MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, those kinds of database you can use if you need a SQL database, which are offered by AWS RDS service. For this demo, we will focus on the DynamoDB. Again, there is a reason of using DynamoDB. DynamoDB is very fast. Like if I compare the performance, DynamoDB gives the response in a microsecond. So let's say any application, you won't like it, right? That you type something, let's say Lenovo laptop in Amazon.in, it takes 2 minutes to give the entire list of it, what different laptops are available. You want as fast as possible. So similarly, DynamoDB helps most of the web application are built on DynamoDB in most of the scenarios because DynamoDB is very fast in terms of the lower latency. Now let's understand what exactly is the DynamoDB. So DynamoDB is a fully managed NoSQL key value database. So key value, you understood how I was giving a key and a value in case of API gateway also. There was number 1 and there was a 10 as a value. Number 2, 20 as a value. The key is a value. Generally, JSON is a key value structure. So DynamoDB in simple, again, it's not exact the same JSON, but again, you can think of it. It's like you're storing the data in a JSON format where there is a key, there is a value corresponding. The key is nothing but the column name. The value is a specific value of that row. Why DynamoDB is popular? Why your organizers also wants you to go through DynamoDB? Because DynamoDB, again, as I was talking about in Lambda, there is no hardware processing, provisioning, there is no setup, no configuration, replication, software patching, or any sorts of cluster required. You don't have to do anything. If you have any sorts of lab you would have done for Oracle or something, right? There is a software which needs to be installed, or there is a MySQL or Lambda, MySQL, those kinds of software needs to be installed. Then there will be a heavyweight will come up. 10 times your laptop will get hanged, and then you have to restart to get into this. I've also done the same thing in my college days, so don't worry about how do I know it. So that's all you need to do. But in case of DynamoDB, it's very lightweight and very simple. It's available in AWS console. You just need to worry about this, adding your table name, adding your primary key. And if you need to configure, let's say, the permissions and all, which I don't think you will require for your hackathon, but in industry, you need to scale. Like you need 15 users or 50,000 users at a time. That kind of read-write operation scaling is what you need to do. Rest, AWS will take care everything, which you will understand. Again, it's not more than 10 clicks and you will deploy your DynamoDB table. And not 10 lines of code, within that you can read or insert any data. So that is why DynamoDB is very popular, because of its lower latency, managed offering, cloud native from AWS, and again, very lightweight and very powerful in terms of the performance. Again, you can also do more advanced things, like you can expire the record, which is not required for your hackathon, but just in case in future, if you need, it can auto expire. Like auto expire is, I don't need any records after 7 days. So in simple, is you have to again write the code, see the insert date, and do it, right? That's what you will think. DynamoDB takes care for on behalf of you. Just need to specify the TTL, time to live, and how many days. Rest everything will be taken care by DynamoDB itself. You don't even need to write the code for it. So that's about DynamoDB. And if we go in detail, like I'm pretty sure you guys would have SQL in your college days, like primary key, foreign key, those kinds of composite primary keys and those kinds of stuff, right? In RDS, relational databases and all. There are certain kinds of same thing comes into DynamoDB itself. First is a primary key. Then there are indexes. So primary key consists of the same partition key, which needs to be hashed unique, because that defines your physical location of data. It's very important. Many a time when you go and you start leveraging DynamoDB, you will see certain time the performance of DynamoDB is very poor. It's not because of AWS. Just remember, whenever you get lower performance of DynamoDB, there are two problems as always. One, either you haven't configured the RCU and WCU, which is read write capacity unit. Second is you haven't designed your table properly. If you don't select the partition key is like a different buckets based on which DynamoDB plays your data. If you define too many buckets or too small buckets, then efficiently picking up the data from that bucket will be more scan, and that will give you the poor performance. If you give more buckets, that is overhead. If you give small buckets, then you need to scan the whole bucket to get the data. So that's a bad part of partition key. So do remember that. Composite again, combination keys, partition plus sort key. So let's say think like email ID and location. So email ID can be your unique key. Location, you want to filter or organize your email ID based on location. Here are all the email IDs for Mumbai location. Here all are the email IDs for Dehradun. Then that can be the sort key. Secondary index allows you to perform queries on attributes, not on the part of the table primary key. So again, this all secondary indexes, local secondary indexes, global secondary indexes. This is what you need when you start actively working around it. So for now, you can just understand what exactly in detail. But for your hackathon, when you're building a simple application, you can skip this out. Again, this is, if I summarize all of this indexes in given time, this is a mean or form how you can efficiently query your data or fetch a particular row to make the performance more faster. That's all the different perspective of functionalities provided by DynamoDB. Now, what I'll do is I'll quickly go ahead and demo you an application, how exactly you can build a DynamoDB. For that, let me switch to my AWS console. I hope my console is visible. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and we'll create a table in DynamoDB. So this is how my entire DynamoDB console look like. What you can do, you can create a table. This is how the table, you can name the table, you can give primary thing, let's say location, or let's say email. And as I said, sort key, you can give optional. You can have default settings itself, which is of RCU and WCU. And you can create table. How many clicks? Your table is ready. You just provided the name, primary key, and your table is all set. You can just write the data, insert the data, query the data from this table. This is as simple as deploying the DynamoDB table. Yeah, I know you guys might be thinking, okay, is it really a joke, or this is like as simple as what you're talking about? Yeah, this is as simple. So this is how you can define your DynamoDB table, and then within the table, you can explore the table, you can write, you can update, you can do anything here. Okay, so that's how your entire DynamoDB table works. In interest of time, what I'll do is I'll quickly delete this table and will let this table get deleted. What I'll do is meantime is I'll quickly spin up a Lambda and I'll show you the end-to-end route, how you can trigger an API gateway to a Lambda, and then you can have a kind of a simple HTML website also quickly in next 10 minutes. Exactly. We are currently at 8:01. In next 10 minutes, I'll show you how exactly you can write a simple static website, host a static website, fire an API gateway, which will have a Lambda, and that Lambda will store the data in DynamoDB. You can put a timer also if you want. So first step, I will define the Lambda. I'll create a new Lambda and I'll name it as insert record. Again, you can name it anything what you want. I'm going to give a insert record. I'll do the same thing which I've done last time. I've created a Lambda function which has a code snippet. Next, I'll get my code quickly from my database. And again, don't worry, as I said, this all code I will share with you guys, so you can refer it. I think there is one question in the chat. I will do answer them for sure before the end of the session. Okay. This is my code which I've got. Again, I'll put it into the GitHub so you can refer this. So if I talk about this code until the Lambda is getting saved, I'm reading name, location, email ID, and company name, 4 JSON objects or JSON keys, and storing in a table user data in DynamoDB with the same. Okay, so that's what we are doing around the, in case of this particular Lambda. Next, the Lambda is all set. I will go and deploy DynamoDB as a second thing. So I'll go search DynamoDB, the same thing what we have done. We have set up a table here. I'll create a table, name, primary key. I will leave everything as rest, the same, and create table. So this is a table name which is given in my code. This is my primary key. So if you verify the same in the Lambda, you will figure out that this is the same thing what we are doing. This is a Lambda. This is the table name, and these are the other details. And this is my key, which I've given as a primary key, unique key. So DynamoDB is set, Lambda is set. What is left now? API gateway. So let's go to the API gateway now. I hope someone is keeping a watch on the time itself, right? How much time it's taking. So what I'll do is I'll select the same thing, build, and this time I'll get, let's say, subscription. Subscription is my big name. I mean, you can just directly also do insert. Like, let's say if you have an API endpoint and within that you need to have create, retrieve, update, delete. You can have it in one big API endpoint. You can have sub different resources or methods. So that also you can do. Since I have only one operation, I'm creating a single endpoint, insert. I will repeat the same step. I'll create a method, select post, Lambda. Now this time I will select insert record, save. I'll give the permission. So this was the same thing I've done. I'll do the next step, the same thing. I'll create a enable the cross. So the cross is set, Lambda is set. Now, next what we need to do is deploy this, save your changes, right? So for that, I'll create new stage. I'll save it. So this becomes my URL. In order to save, this becomes my entire backend. API gateway will be triggered by the UI. API gateway will trigger the Lambda. Lambda will perform the write operation in DynamoDB. So you saw my DynamoDB was also clean slate. I didn't have any records in it. My API gateway is also sorted. Next, what I'll do is I'll enable the static website. So static website, I already have a simple code, a simple form, very simple HTML form. So I'll go to my S3 bucket. Again, if you guys, I think last time in your not last yeah, last time Faisal itself has done one session around how to store or how to enable static website. I think last month itself. If you're still new, you missed that session, please go to your YouTube channel or UPSC. There is a session, good session done by Faisal itself on the static website, so you can refer the same. If not, then you can follow the steps which I'm doing. So step one is you create a S3 bucket and upload the code. So in my case, this is my HTML file. This is my logo of user group Mumbai, and this is my style sheet. And I'll upload. Upload is done. Step two, I need to enable the permission. So I need to enable the static hosting here. So which is my main file, index.html. And step three, you need to enable the permissions. So first you need to disable. So in case of static website, you need to provide the public access to the bucket. So please do, I'll warn you, don't store any other data in the bucket where you host your static website, because you need to make it public. So I've disabled the block. So that's why it's asking me that, okay, hey, I'm just warning you, you're making a bucket as public. Step one. Step two, you need to provide the permission here. Again, the permission also I've given you guys. I'll give you the guys the JSON which is required for permission. Let me fetch that from. So this is the permission where you can see I've given a very specific permission, and the only change you need to do in this permission is this bucket name. So do watch out, /star. Don't remove that /star. Just only you need to provide the bucket name, and you have to save the changes. As soon as you save the changes, you will see there's a red icon, publicly accessible. Once you see this publicly accessible, that means that you're successfully deployed your website. If you don't get this, that means you will get a 403 in your web application. So 3 steps: create bucket, upload the code, enable the static website, and enable the properties. Now I'll paste this and I'll hit enter. This is what my static website is. I'll click subscription. Okay. Let me give is okay. Okay. So this is what I'm giving. AWS user group Mumbai. Again, some random values which you can give it, and I'll save, add. So okay, so this is how the form looks like. Sorry, I missed this. This is how the form looks like. What I'll do is I'll again I've already given one entry, but again, you guys didn't look into it. I'll give the entry again. Okay, so I've given money, Mumbai, m@m.com and m, and I'll add. Now I'll quickly go back to the AWS console and go to the Dynamodb. There should be 2 records in it. One is with S, second is with money. So I'm in the user data section. I will go ahead and explore table items, and we'll okay. One of the mistake which I made here while uploading the code was I didn't change the endpoint. As I said, right, I've deployed the new API gateway, so I didn't change the endpoint. So for that, what I have to do is I will go here at the post stage, select prod, select this particular endpoint, and change the code into my HTML file. So 1 second, let me make a change. And don't worry, I'll also demonstrate that change. So now what I will do, right, since I didn't upload the right file, I'll upload my HTML file again in S3, point to the right API gateway. So I'll upload, add file. Okay, so this is what I've uploaded my file. This has been done. What I'll do is I'll switch back to my application and I will, one second. Okay, I need to make this 1 minute. So this is how you'll get a 403 permission error if you're not rightly giving the permission, or if your permission get problematic. One second, let me fix this. One second, I think there's a small issue. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so as you can see, it took some time to apply the new changes. And what was the problem was, since I uploaded the new file, it took some time to apply the permission changes on that file. So our permission was correct, but it took its own time to respond. I'll click here and we'll do the same thing, money. And I'll hit add. Now let me quickly check the Dynamodb. So I'll go to the tables. Again, I need to go to the right region. I'll go to the tables. In that table, I'll go to the user data, explore item, and you can see the item is added. So this was an ad record, m@m.com, M, Mumbai, and money. So this is how it is very simple to build an application on AWS, hosting a web application on HTTP, on S3, having an API gateway, Lambda, and Dynamodb. Even I made a mistake, still it took me almost 11 minutes to build an application, which if you go with proper the entire kind of your Lambda, your entire LAMP stack, PHP, and all those kinds of stuff, it will take you a couple of good hours. That's the whole beauty of having serverless, API gateway, and DynamoDB. So that's what I had from the session. I'm open for any sorts of questions you guys have, but this is about how you can explore Lambda, build a simple APIs with help of API gateway, and leverage DynamoDB as the backend and S3 to store the static website around it. So that's about from my side. I think there's one question. And again, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. I'll be happy to answer them. I think there's already one question. I'll answer it. Can we take a backup or replicate the data stored in DynamoDB? Yes, exactly. Obviously, you can do that. So in case of DynamoDB, there are many services like Athena, Glue, or data pipeline, via which you can take the data, back it up in S3, or you can also replicate the DynamoDB. DynamoDB, if you go towards advanced concept, they have some streaming. So that how you can also even replicate the changes or propagate that data from one DynamoDB table to another. All those things possible. Any other questions you guys have? And again, as I mentioned, the presentation, the entire slides, the code which I use for demo, I'll all put it into the YouTube channel of UPS. How could we share the data store in Dynamodb? Okay, first, why do you want to, I mean, if you understand the use case, why do you want to share the data? Your Dynamodb table is already available on AWS console with IAM access. You can again give that access to end user and they can leverage it. That's one way. Two, let's say worst case scenario, a person don't have an access to AWS console and you want to give it. You can download, you can export the data out completely to S3 via CSV and all, and you can share that CSV also. So that's all possible you can do. Similarly, I mean, how you're sharing data export via SQL Server. Either you will give the credentials or you will export the data and share it in other form. Similarly, what you can do here also. Any other question?
Okay, so Sanchit, I don't think we have any other questions in our bucket right now. So, okay, we have one.
Yeah. If we replicate or duplicate the data, then data is synced with our service, then we use that backup or replicated data. Sorry, one second, let me understand the question. If we replicate or duplicate the data, okay, then the data is synced with our service that we use to backup or replicate the data. If I understand your question correctly, the replication or the synchronization, what you're doing, you will be doing off of your or duplication, what you're doing on the original database. So if you're doing a replicate or synchronize, that will be the exact copy of your original database. Let's say your table 1 and table 2. If you're doing any sorts of replication or synchronization with DynamoDB streams and all, that won't be, I mean, I would say exact real time, like on a fraction of second, there will be some sort of a delay, but the data will be consistent. Same data, what you're looking at table 1 will be replicated in table 2. There won't be any sorts of differences there. So if I understand your question, yes, the data would be exact copy what you are replicating from table 1 to table 2. I hope I answered your question. Cool. If you have any other questions, you can put it in the chat, or yeah, you can, or you can put it in the form of a comment. I will look into it and answer offline.
Anyone else having any question or query, they can contact me or contact Sanchit directly. So now, as we come to an end of this insightful event, I would really like to thank you, Sanchit, for sparing time from your like from sparing time from your busy schedule and providing us with a very informative session. I really think that our students really enjoyed the session and learned a lot through it. I would also like to thank all the students who gathered here. You made this event really successful. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have you guys have a wonderful hackathon. Let me know if you have any doubts. I'm almost online and part of your user group Dehradun Slack channel itself. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Slack. You can reach out to me on the YouTube channel, or LinkedIn is there. So don't hesitate. Reach out to me if you need any help, and I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Sanjay.